During the Great Awakenings, the winds of revival swept New England. Lives were changed, churches were started, and whole communities were transformed by the gospel. These awakenings left New England with a rich heritage of Christianity. We see it in the white steepled churches that dot every town across our region. Regretfully, that heritage is in the distant past, and now New England has become one of the least evangelized regions in our nation. Though New England is no longer the cradle of Christianity it once was, the Lord has not left himself without a witness. Spiritual renewal is being felt in evangelical churches that have remained focused on the gospel and on the preaching of the word. A reawakening of personal evangelism and spiritual devotion is happening in the lives of individuals who hunger and thirst for righteousness. There are many examples of what God is doing across New England. For instance, in 2014, the Baptist Convention of New England celebrated a record number of baptisms for the second year in a row. This was during the same time in which baptisms all across the country were declining. God is at work in New England. Another example of God's work in New England through the Baptist Convention of New England is that each year hundreds of teens gather at our two big youth events. Allison Clark leads a whole team of youth workers who are reaching the next generation with the gospel. And it's not just teenagers that we're reaching. We also have ministries on more than 25 college campuses across New England. We have lay leadership training events in multiple locations throughout the year, and with NAM's partnership, we have planted over 160 churches since 2007 with a 91% survival rate. This is something worth celebrating. In the midst of all of these great reports, the Baptist Convention of New England does face some serious challenges. For example, New England culture is now post-Christian, and fewer people consider themselves to have a biblical worldview. Another significant challenge is that one of our greatest partners, the North American Mission Board, has tightened their ministry focus more intently, which has necessitated significant changes in how we fund other BC&E initiatives. We've lost several key staff positions that focused on church strengthening and leadership development. These are challenges that truly face our convention. Other challenges that we face include the funding for our youth ministry position, which has ended, even though we have kept the position. Another challenge is that most of our associational directors of missions have become bivocational, which has significantly limited the amount of time they have to devote to the churches. Another challenge is that some of our churches want higher levels of service from the BC&E, while they give less and less to the BC&E, both in volunteerism and in financial resources. That's a trend that simply cannot continue. Now, these challenges are real and can be discouraging if we focus on them. But despite the challenges that have arisen in recent years, the future will be bright if we remember that God is still sovereign and He is still at work in New England. It is time to embrace that future by moving forward in faith. How can we embrace the future that God wants the BC&E to have? Well, first of all, we must raise up an army of prayer warriors. Nothing of eternal significance will ever be accomplished apart from prayer. We need people to prayer walk communities across New England and plead with God to bring spiritual renewal. We also need people praying specifically for the Baptist Convention of New England and its affiliated churches. The best way to do that is to sign up for the BC&E Journal so that people can know how to pray more effectively. Another way that we can embrace the future is by helping churches find ways to share the gospel that does not require significant monetary investment. Since funds are limited, we must find ways to share the gospel that are less expensive. One of the best ways to do this is to train people in personal evangelism. It doesn't cost anything for one person to share their testimony with another person. As a matter of fact, personal evangelism will be the focus of the BC&E evangelism team for the next 2 years. Though none of us like to talk about money, the reality is if we're going to embrace the future, we must address some pressing financial needs. We must eliminate the mortgage on our BC&E building so that we can free up approximately $20,000 a year for other ministry priorities. We must create new sources of ongoing funding for 5 key initiatives that are central to our mission, but outside the scope of our current partners. These sources of funding must be controlled by us, so they're not susceptible to the changing priorities of other organizations. What are the key initiatives that we need to find funding for? Well, the one that's most prominent in most of our minds is the BC&E Staff Fund, which will focus on youth ministry, church revitalization, leadership development, and pastoral development. Let's be honest. Allison Clark is one of our most effective team members. We must do whatever it takes to save the funding for her position. And then let's be honest, we really need someone working directly with our pastors, and we need someone leading the leadership development team. This costs money, but we can do it. New England is not a poor region. If we work together, we can provide all the staff that we need to reach New England with the gospel. A second initiative that we need to fund is the Collegiate Ministry Endowment at the Baptist Foundation of New England. New England is home to 237 colleges and universities, 60% of which have no identifiable evangelical witness. Now, we're thankful that for the moment the North American Mission Board is continuing their funding of collegiate ministry, but they've made it very clear to us that as the various individuals who are currently involved in collegiate ministry leave our region, their positions will be eliminated. This would mean that over a period of a few years, our entire collegiate ministry budget would disappear. This is not something that we can just sit by and let happen. Instead, what we must do is start building the endowment that we have at the Baptist Foundation so that as the funding disappears, we'll be able to create our own funding from our own endowment. We can do this. God has given us the plan. We can reach the next generation with the gospel. We're also concerned about the Church Health Endowment at the Baptist Foundation of New England to help existing churches. We're thankful for all that we do for church plants, but existing churches cannot be ignored. They also need assistance. And of course we have the Hoover Institute, started so generously by the estate of Charlotte Hoover, and it provides funding for contextually appropriate training opportunities for pastors and lay leaders. And then of course there's the James Curran Loan Fund, which funds the churches for capital expenses. Many of our BC&E churches have received assistance from this loan fund, and they know how important it is. Well, what's the strategy for addressing these issues? How are we actually going to do it? Well, first of all, we're prayerfully seeking 246 churches, individuals, or organizations to make a special $1,200 commitment outside of their regular giving. For each $1,200 gift, we will apply $1,000 toward paying off our debt so that we can devote more of our own funds to ministry. And then we will allow the donor to choose one of those 5 key initiatives that we just mentioned to apply the other $200 to. Basically, we want you to decide which one is the most important to your church or to your family or to your organization, and then direct some of your funding to it. What is the timetable for the Embracing the Future effort? Well, the effort will officially be kicked off in the November 2015 BC&E annual meeting with a special Embracing the Future offering. Churches and individuals are encouraged to give their $1,200 in one lump sum in November to that offering. Just imagine, This could be the largest single offering that the Baptist Convention of New England has ever received at one time. Together, we can do this. Those that are unable to give a lump sum are encouraged to give a gift of $100 to the initial offering, with a pledge for the other $1,100 to be given by the end of 2016. Now, we're aware that some of our churches and some individuals will want to be part of this effort, but will be unable to commit to $1,200. Those people are welcome to make a gift of any amount, all of which will be used to retire our debt. What is it that we want you to do in response to our plea? Well, first of all, we want you to pray. Please don't become involved in the Embracing the Future effort because you feel guilty or you feel a sense of duty or obligation. We want you to pray first and then respond as the Spirit enables you. Second, we want to ask people in our churches and our partners around the country to sign up for the monthly e-journal, either by going directly to the website or by collecting their email addresses in whatever way your church wants to collect them. We need to get as many people praying specifically for the BC&E as possible, and the e-journal is the avenue to make that happen. And then we want to ask your church to include one or more Embracing the Future units of $1,200 in their budget over and above their cooperative program giving. Some churches will only be able to give $1,200. Some will want to give $2,400 or $3,600 or $4,800, as many units of $1,200 as they can. And then lastly, we want to encourage individuals to make commitments to become one of our 246 Embracing the Future $1,200 donors. Probably our churches will not be able to do this alone, but as individuals join with churches, we can get this done. The state of the Baptist Convention of New England is currently healthy, but we do face challenges that we must address or our ministries will be crippled fairly soon. We're looking at a 24 to 36 month window before some of our key funding begins to end. We must solve this problem before that time runs out. Fortunately, God is at work, and as we join Him in that work and embrace the future, He will do more than we can immeasurably ask or imagine. Do you have questions about this? Do you want to know more? Are you curious? Do you want to become involved? Contact Dr. Terry W. Dorsett via email at tdorsett@bcne.net or via phone at 508-393-6013, extension 224. God bless you, and thanks for your partnership in ministry.